Hello student and welcome to the today's online session. Myself Dr. S.R. Patil. I am working as assistant professor in the S.V.K.T. Arts, Science and Commerce College, Deolali camp. Dear student, today's session is for the TYBSc chemistry students. In today's session, we start for the new subject, chemistry of soil and agrochemicals. This subject is included in the TYBSc chemistry syllabus for the semester number 6. Okay, and this is a new subject. This is a skill-based subject introduced in the curriculum for the TYBSc student in the choice-based credit system. Dear student, from this subject today we start with the first chapter, that is the soil chemistry. We know that what is meant by soil and how it is formed. The soil chemistry included the study of basic background of the soil chemistry and how to form the soils, then a study of the physical and chemical properties of soil, the importance of soil, importance of agrochemistry. All these terms we will discuss in this chapter. So, before starting today's session, first we will look over on the session agenda of today's session. In the first point, we had discussed about the introduction about the soil chemistry. Then we had discussed the role of agricultural chemistry. Then the scope and the importance of agricultural chemistry. We know that the agricultural chemistry is the very big branch, and soil chemistry is related to this branch. So, in this session we discuss about the scope and importance of agricultural chemistry. After that we will discuss on the agricultural chemistry and other science, because agricultural chemistry, this branch is related with the other different type of branches of science, and the role of all these branches we had discussed in this session. And important part about this session is the soil. So, we discuss about the different definitions of soil which are introduced into the TYBSc student syllabus. So, this is the session agenda. Now, the learning objective of today's session. After this session, student should know about the role of agricultural chemistry, what exact role of agricultural chemistry in the soil chemistry. Then also after the session, a student will learn about the scope of agricultural chemistry and the importance of agricultural chemistry, because for the knowledge of the soil chemistry, it is very important to study the agricultural chemistry. And after that, today's session, student also know about the agricultural chemistry and other science, how they are interlinked with each other. Other branches of science with the agriculture chemistry. Okay, this is all about the learning objectives of today's session. So, dear student, we start with the introductory part, introduction of that soil chemistry. We know that today's progress in agricultural sector, science and technology make it possible for our nation to achieve its current level of scientific and technological excellence and its high standard of living. So, the great challenge facing to mankind in the 21st century is to produce the basic necessities of food, feed, fibers and fuel. Okay, important challenge in front of the mankind is increasing population and supply of the food, feed, fibers and fuel to all this population. It's a big challenge. Worldwide challenge. This is one of the factor to meet these requirements. Some the extent is important to agriculture field, and it can be done by the bringing the balanced land under the cultivation without any side effect. Then increase of farm production and a steady increase in the yield of crop per hectares are necessary to meet the population's requirements for the sufficient amount of high quality foodstuffs, fruits and the raw material for the certain agriculture industry, because all these things in dependent on the agricultural chemistry or agricultural sector to fulfill all these needs. So it is extremely important to use the available water and land probably and with the highest possible efficiency, considering the study of agricultural chemistry as a green concern, because there is a lot of problems in the agriculture sector due to the excess use of the different types of chemicals, and therefore we have to consider the green corner related to these agricultural chemistry to increase the production of agricultural different types of products. So the agriculture is the world's biggest, most important industry. This is a very big industry, agriculture industry, which provide us the almost all basic needs like the food, clothes and shelters. And that's we say that the roti, kapda or makan. We know that this line we had already heard from the school time. Okay. So in addition, it provides the material used in making many industrial products such as the medicines, paints and other many chemicals. We know that these agricultural is a big industry, and many small scale industries are depend on the agricultural industry. Okay. So different types of production of the different type of product, there is a need of raw material, and that raw material is supplied from the agricultural sector. Therefore it is most important branch or most important industry as compared or as related to the other different type of industry. Okay. From that different types of raw material, different types of final materials in the different type of sectors are prepared from the raw material which is produced from these agriculture sector, like the medicines, plants and other different types of chemical which are needed to prepare the final product for the mankind. Okay. So we know that it is one of the oldest industry. Agriculture industry is a very oldest industry. About half of the world's manpower works are employed in this sector, agriculture sector. Okay. It is an art of cultivating soil for purpose of producing the more abundantly crops that are necessary for the substances of the man and his demonstration animals. Because all these living beings life cycle is dependent on these agricultural sector. So the initially when we consider about the agriculture sector, farming sector, that farming depending heavily on the humans and the animal labor. Okay. Then the farmers had few tools to make their lands and labor more productive during the 19th century. After that, the scientists have developed the better, stronger varieties of the plants like the vegetables, grains, than the livestock and highly effective fertilizer, nutrients and the pesticide. And due to development of all these different type of new fertilizers, nutrients, pesticide, micronutrients, then the growth stimulators, due to these all these invention from the different scientists, the productivity of agricultural products are increased. Okay. And all these improvement have a great improve the field efficacy. So that increase the productivity of different types of farm products, and the numerous new crops have been introduced. Okay. Then the existing crops have also been improved by selection and the cross breeding. Okay. Diseases of the, along with that, the diseases of the crops have been also investigated. Okay. Then the remedies for their control and irrigations have been discovered. Therefore, the control measures for the damaging caused by the pest like insect, bacteria and fungus have been successfully applied. And all these improvements have been possible due to the knowledge of chemistry, because chemistry is a very principal subject, and it is related to all the branches of science. And if all these drawbacks, loopholes in the agricultural sectors are with the help of chemistry, knowledge of chemistry can fulfill with the knowledge of chemistry. Therefore, the chemistry plays a vital role in the development of the agricultural sector. This is all about the introductory part about the agricultural chemistry and related to the soil chemistry. Next important part is what is the role of agricultural chemistry. We know that the agricultural chemistry or the agrochemistry is the branch of science and which deals with the interaction of plant, soil and fertilizers. There is an interlink between these three factors, plant, soil and fertilizers. So that agricultural chemistry is the branch of science and that studied the interaction of that plant, soils and fertilizers. So it is related to the cultivation of the farm crops, then the cycle of nutrients in the agriculture and the application of fertilizers to improve the yields of crops, their quality and the quantity also. So what is the objective of that agricultural chemistry? Dear student, the objective of important objective of the agricultural chemistry is to study the cycle of nutrients and find the way to influence the chemical processes occurring in the soil and plants to increase the yield of crop. This is the main objective of agricultural chemistry. Okay, for it is a study the influence of the chemical processes occurring in the soil plant to increase the yield of crops. The point of center is that attention is that the how to fulfill the demand of mankind to how to increase the yield of crops. Okay, and the application of organic and chemical fertilizer is the most drastic way of altering this cycle. Okay, different type of organic and chemical fertilizers are used in agriculture field for increasing the productivity of the agriculture sector, and therefore the agrochemistry as a science has been making extraordinary process to fulfill the day-to-day needs of the man. Okay, because the role of that agrochemistry is very crucial to fulfill all the needs for the human beings, and this science has to unique importance because it helps to increase the productivity of all the agricultural products and the productivity of farm crops through the extensive use of fertilizers, micronutrients, pesticides, plant growth hormones, improvement in the cultivation techniques, advance in the breeding and other sciences. This is the achievement of the science and technology. It is very helpful to increase the productivity of the agricultural sector. So bioenergy produced during the various processes within the soil has been effectively used by the agrochemist, and that used for the enhancing the yielding capacity of crops and improving the cycle of nutrients in the agriculture. This is the most important point or most important way to increase the capacity of crops and how to increase the cycle of nutrients in agriculture by using the biofuels. Practically, no soil can sustain a high crop yield from its own nutrients reserves indefinitely. Okay, we have to need to use the different types of chemicals, fertilizers, pesticides, micronutrients to increase the high crop yield. So even most fertile soil also becomes deficient in the nutrients. We have to add the nutrients through all these chemicals to take one type of crops to number of years. And such a type of nutrient deficiency is removed by the application of a proper manures and fertilizers. Okay, after the soil testing report and by studying its physical and chemical properties, which is the basis of agrochemistry. First, to fulfill the deficiency of all these nutrients, we have to analyze the soil or study the soil. Testing of soil, and then after that the nutrient deficiency is removed by application of the proper manures, fertilizers. Okay, and after that we can also study the physical and chemical properties of soil, and from that we know which type of deficiency is there, and to fulfill that deficiency we use the different types of chemicals. Okay, so the application of fertilizers, manures, micronutrients and the pesticide that helps in the improving the fertility of the soil and yielding a better crop. Due to the application of all these chemicals, we increase the productivity of different types of agricultural products. So next important point is the scope and importance of agricultural chemistry. What type of scope is for the agricultural chemistry and the importance? We know that agricultural chemistry for the increasing the productivity or increasing the fertility of the soil. So these there are the three main objectives of the agricultural chemistry. First is the plant, soil and fertilizers, and we know that all these three objectives, plant, soil and fertilizers, are interrelated to each other. Okay, the climates and all other factors must be taken into consideration in studying the interrelation between the plants, soil and fertilizer, because the role of climate is the most important in the agriculture field. Okay, and due to the application of fertilizer increases the content of available nutrients in a soil. So the chemical composition of the soil as well as its physical and other properties are also changed by the addition of the fertilizers in the soil. First we test or analyze the soil, and by analyzing or by testing the soil we know that which type of deficiency is there, and to avoid that deficiency we can apply different types of fertilizers, manure, nutrients, micronutrients, and due to application of all these chemical compositions into the soil, the physical and chemical property of that soil is get changed due to the addition of all these chemical compositions in the soil. So the importance of inorganic nutrients also produce a favorable effect on the photosynthesis and accelerate the growth of plant. Due to the different types of organic and inorganic compositions into the introduction into the soil, there are different roles of all these compositions, like that inorganic nutrients provides the favorable photosynthesis effect, and due to that growth of that plant is accelerated. Addition of the fertilizers to the soil improves texture and the other physical properties also. Okay, and due to that as a result the soil becomes more fertile and helps in the proper growth of the plant. So when the plant is built up their own mass from the water, the carbon dioxide and the inorganic nutrient present into the soil, we know that this is a procedure how to plant is build their own mass due to with the help of the natural contents, okay, like water, carbon dioxide and inorganic nutrients from the soil. Their root exhaust can convert is the unavailable form of some compounds into the available form. We know that different types of nutrients, different type of chemical compositions which are present in the soil, but these are the unavailable form. Okay, and that plant is converted all these plant root is converted all these unavailable forms into of the compound into the available forms, and it is depending upon their biological properties. Each plant requires a certain amount of moisture, optimum temperature, nutrients, pH, light, aeration and other conditions for the aquatic support of the all its vital activity. We know that there are different types of parameter which depend on the growth of the any plants. So the actual effect on all the soil properties is produced by the organic matter resulting from decaying the root system and the decomposition of the crop residue left in the field after the harvesting. All this part is the organic matter which is decayed into the soil. Okay, so incorporation of the fertilizers into the soil changes the ratio and the amount of individual nutrient present in the soil, because some nutrients are naturally present in the soil and some are added through all these chemical compositions, and due to the addition of this chemical composition the soil changes the ratio of individual nutrient which is present in the soil. So a reaction of the, it is also changed the reaction of the soil solutions and the composition of the absorbing complexes as well as the activity of many microbiological process. We know that there is a different type of chemical as well as the all these type of chemical reactions. Many chemical reactions involve the microbiological actions, or there is a role of microorganisms in all these processes. So next important part about the agricultural chemistry and the other sciences, because the agricultural chemistry is depends on the different type of sciences, okay, and that is the importance of agricultural chemistry. Okay, the fundamentals of the agrochemistry include the theory of plant nutrients and the major agrochemical properties of the soil in the context of the plant nutrients and the interaction with the fertilizers, and properties of fertilizers are shown in the form of nutrient cycles. We know that the nutrient cycle. First point about the different types of branches related to the agrochemistry is closely related to the physiology of the plant, concerned with the factors of the green plant and the vital activities of the plant organisms. Second important point about the knowledge of plant organisms, properties underlying the science of agrochemistry. And third important part in the different type of science and agrochemistry is that the cultivation of plants and decides the maximum their yield calls for the perfect match between the requirements of plant organism and the cultivation method. Next important part related to the branches that environmental factors are studied by the pedology and meteorology and agrophysics science, which with which the agrochemistry is closely related. We know that the agricultural sector is mostly depend on the climate, so therefore the meteorology is the most important branch of science which is related to the agrochemistry. Another important part about the agrochemistry resorts to finding in such a discipline as the genetics and the breeding of the farm crops. Therefore, the increasing the growth of different types of crops, these genetics and breeding of farm crops is most important. Along with that, the agronomy, the agricultural microorganisms and biochemistry is all other branches is also related with the agrochemistry. So it is difficult to define the boundaries between the agrochemistry and plant physiology and the biochemistry of the plants, because they are interlinked with each other, and study of all these branches is most important when we discuss about the agricultural chemistry. So the agricultural chemistry is to study the soil chemistry, then problematic soil and the soil testing to take the care of plants, good quality irrigation water, proper type of insecticides and pesticides used. All these study is included in the agricultural chemistry to increase the productivity of any agricultural product. So the growth related and the stimulators must be brought in the line with the amount, selection and the application of fertilizers to increase the crop yield. So when we study the agricultural chemistry, we must know about the different types of stimulators, growth retarders, chemicals, and the amount, how much amount is used in the different types of soil is most important. Also, which type of fertilizer is applied, in selection of that fertilizer is most important to increase the crop yield, and all these studies is included into the agricultural chemistry. So we should not forget, however, about the possible consequences, the environmental imbalance due to the excess use of the pesticide, fertilizer and water. We use all these chemical composition. Our aim is to increase the productivity of agricultural products, and for that we use all these chemical composition. But during the use of all these chemical composition, we have must be considered, we have must be remember that the environmental balance is must be maintained, okay, and you know that the environmental imbalance due to the excessive use of the pesticides, fertilizers and water. So during the application of all these chemical composition, we must remember to know about the environmental balance. So therefore it is essential to have to knowledge about the agronomy, agrochemistry, biochemistry and the microbiology. All these branches must be important, or they must be included in the agrochemistry. In general, we say that the agrochemistry is the summation of the chemical and biological science, because it's a combination of chemical and biological science. Both the branches is most important for the better application of the agrochemistry. So this is all about the scope and importance of the agricultural chemistry. Next important point about the definition of soil. Dear student, there is a many definition of soil. Basic definitions are there, and as related to the different types of definition, here we consider some definitions of the soil. So primary definition of soil is that the natural body which develops as a result of the pathogenic processes that takes place during and after weathering of rocks, in which plants and other forms of the life are able to grow. We know that how soil is formed, how it is prepared. It is a very long process, and due to the weathering, the soil is formed. Okay, so it forms a loose superficial mantle covering the earth crust, and is the set of a continual change and the transformation brought about by the genetic factor. This is one of the basic definition of the soil. So these change and the transformation make the soil a dynamic entities. Okay, the word soil is derived from the one Latin word called as the solum. Okay, of the solum is the bodies which meaning of that word solum is the bodies which means the floor. Okay, and soil are also known as the pedosphere. This is one of the alternative name of the soil, and that word is derived from the Latin word solum. So these are the composed of air, water, minerals, organic matters, and the organisms. They can be regarded as the amalgams of the lithosphere and the biosphere, hydrosphere, and the atmosphere. This is a combination of all these spheres. Dear student, in the last semester we already learned about all these spheres: four sphere, lithosphere, biosphere, and hydrosphere, and along with the atmosphere in the last semester. So this is the basic definition of the soil and how it is formed. There is a combination of the different types of contents is there. So the scientist which studied the soil is called as the pedologist, and who use the term polypedons for the bodies of individual kind of soil in the geographical areas. Soil profile is a term used to describe the composition of the soil. Okay, and the soil is treated as a natural entity, we know that, and biochemical weathered and the synthesized product of nature, and as a natural habitat for the plants. We know that a pedon is the three-dimensional sampling units of size about 1 to 10 meters square used for the examination of and the study of the soil in the field. This is the sampling unit. By using this pedon sampling unit, we can take the samples for the examination and study of the different types of properties of soil from the field. A pedologist studies, then examines and classifies soil as they occurs in the natural environment, while the edaphology is the study of the soil from standpoint of the highest plants. Edaphologists consider the various parameters of soil in relation to the crop production. Dear student, as I earlier said that there are many definitions of the soil by the different types of scientists that works on the soil research. There is another alternative definition of the soil, because soil may be defined as many ways. The scientist Ramanna is define soil as the upper weathering layer of the solid earth crust. Soil is the upper layer, weathering layer of the solid earth crust. Very simple definition. One more scientist, Hilgars, in 1917 defined the soil as like soil is a more or a less loose frables material in which by means of their roots plants may or do find a footholds and nourishment as well as the other conditioning of the growth. These are the some definitions. Along with that, there is one more definition by the Danmers RF define the soil as like that the upper part of the earth crust in which plants are encodes. Okay, there is another scientist or pedologist define the soil, and the name of that is the Joffs and the Murberts, and they define the soil like that. Soil is a natural body differentiated into the horizons of material and the organic constituent, usually unconsolidated of a variable depth, which differs from the parent material. How in the parent materials that below in the morphology, physical properties, and the constituent along with the chemical properties and the composition and biological characteristic. Okay, these are the different definition of the soil. From all these, after learning of all these different type of definition, in general we can define soil as the region on the earth's surface where interaction between the geography and biology takes place. This is a very simple definition of the soil. So dear student, this is all about the today's session. In the today's session, we here discuss about some introductory part about the soil chemistry and the agrochemistry. Then here we have also discussed the role of agricultural chemistry, then the scope and importance of agricultural chemistry, and agricultural chemistry and other sciences are interlinked with each other, how it is interlinking or how they dependent on each other. We discuss on this today's session. And final point we have discussed is the definition of soil. Here we discuss the different definition of soil which are derived by the different pedologists or different scientists which work on the soil chemistry. So this is all about the today's session. So there is one session assignment on the basis of today's session. So in the assignment you have to solve two questions. First question is that explain the importance of agricultural chemistry, and second one is the give the importance of soil chemistry. Solve these two questions from the today's session and send me on the Google Classroom for the TYBSc student which is prepared for our subject. And in the next session we will discuss on two important point basis on the soil chemistry, that is the soil components and the physical property of soil. So this is all about the today's session. We will meet in our next session and continue this topic with the two new points, that is the soil components. We study the different soil components in the next session along with their physical properties. Okay, dear student, this is all over the today's session. Thank you.